I want to show you today how you can create these lighting panels to go in your next product rendering scene. And let's go ahead and add a plane. We're going to work on the grid first. So let's have an edit mode. Let's go ahead and holding control, let's move this so that the corner touches that origin point. We're also going to scale it down holding control just by 1 Blender unit. Now we're going to add an array modifier, and we're going to offset that by 1.1. That gives us this gap here. Now it's going across the x-axis. We want to add one also on the y-axis. So let's add a second array modifier, zero out the x, and make that 1.1. It's going in the wrong direction, so let's go ahead and make that a negative 1.1. And now we have a nice window that we can add into our scene. And if you want to increase the count, well, of course you just come over here, and now you have a nice grid light. Because this is a rim light, it's going to be pretty intensive. So let's go ahead and add a new light, and this is going to be grid rim. I'm going to change this to an emission shader, and we're going to increase the strength to 5 because it needs to be pretty bright. So let's move that off to the side. Now we're going to add another plane. This is going to be a panel light that mimics what's called a softbox. And a softbox is just a piece of cloth that's over a box that has reflective material inside of it, and the light shines through it. So to do that, we're just going to keep the cube, or sorry, the plane that we have here. We're going to add a new material, and this will be Softbox 1, because I think I have a couple. Alright, let's go ahead and change that to an emission shader, and that's going to be about all we do here. Let's divide this panel. Let's go into 3D view here. Maybe shrink that just a bit. Alright, let's go into rendered mode, and make sure you're also in cycles render. On this panel, we're going to make that the node editor. So to get this vignette effect that we want to have on these panels, we want to add a texture, wave texture. Now if we plug that in, you can see it creates these bands across. That's because it's using the band version. So if we switch this to the rings, now we have these rings that are going across this panel. We need the origin to go to the center, so let's just add a input texture coordinate, and if we use the object and plug that into the vector, that will place the origin of the wave texture at the origin of our object. So let's go ahead and decrease the size here to something like 0.15. Yeah. So now we have this vignette effect on the outside, and then we also have this little gray spot in the center. If we go back to our scene, we can see that here in our scene. And so that's a basic material, but what if you wanted to add a little bit of color to this? You see the wave texture is already taking up the color slot. So what we need to do is we need to use the factor of the wave texture and plug that into the strength. Let's go ahead and remove that from the color, and you can see now we have this vignette effect and then that center point, but now we can also change the color. But we also want to be able to control the strength, so let's add a converter math node, change this value to multiply, and let's increase the value to say 10, something really hot. So let's go ahead and get rid of our saturation so we can go back to pure white. Now you can see what's actually going on here. As we decrease the value, the vignetting and the center point become a little more detailed and more visible. And if we increase the value, the center point goes away completely and the vignetting disappears. This happens naturally in the studio softboxes as well. As you increase the intensity of the light, the corners become less vignetted. Alright, so let's go ahead and make that. Let's just go to 2.5 because that's a good value for that. Alright, and that is it for that one. So let's go back into our 3D view over here, and we'll just move that guy out of the way. Alright, we're going to add the second one, or the third we're going to add is yet another plane, but this one's going to be kind of like a fluorescent lighting grid. So if we scale this on the Y, just shrink that down to its bar size, this is going to mimic what fluorescent lights look like inside of a garage. So that's basically all we need to do for the modeling. We need to add an array modifier. Let's zero out the X, and let's go ahead and add some movement here, and that's actually way too little. Let's just make that 2. So now we have the spacing. We can increase the count. Alright, yeah, so now you have these bar lights that you can use for lighting up car renders and kind of mimicking what a garage would look like. Okay, and you can always you can increase the count as many or as little as you like. You can increase the offset so that their spacing is different. And if you want to make them longer without actually changing the geometry, you can simply add another array modifier, and now since that is going across the x-axis, all you need to do is increase the count, and you can make it longer. Alright, I'm just going to leave it as the 1 for now, because that's all we need. So let's make that 2 again. Alright, and as far as the material goes, you want to use the same rim light, because you want it to be really bright. The rim light always needs to be pretty bright. Let's go ahead and move that out of the way. Another light that's commonly used in studios, mostly in portrait photography, is the ring light. So let's go ahead and add a circle. Tab into edit mode, press S, and let's go ahead, E to extrude, and then scale it in. Let's go 2 blender units. Now this will work, but I like to give mine a little more detail. So let's go ahead and remove all of these vertices. Go into our modifier tab and select mirror. This is just going to save us a little bit of time. Let's add a loop cut and hold control so it snaps. And let's do the same down here. Give us a little bit of symmetrical appearance. Let's go ahead and do the same 2 faces. 2 faces. Alright, let's go ahead and hold Alt and Shift, and let's select all of these edges that are on the Y and the X axis. And let's go ahead and delete those vertices. Now we have this more interesting look that's going to give a little more detail and allow some of your color of the eyes of your model to shine through, or whatever else it is that you're lighting up. This is usually used as a key lighting, and so we want to have that pretty bright as well. So this is going to be ring key 2. Again, emission shader, make that pure white, and then let's go ahead and increase the brightness to about a 5. Alright. And those are just 4 panels that you can use in all of your renders. So you can always modify them, you can decrease the number of panels, you can change how big they are, you can change their colors. There's even a lot of things that you could do that I haven't even thought of. So to take a look at exactly what I've done in this scene, again, we have this grid light on the top, we have these panels that have this texture inside of it, and that is basically it. The background is also a light source, so it gives a little more detail as well. Alright, if we go look, give it a second to clear up, we can see what's happening here. So we have these spots, and they're also being dragged down and just giving a little extra excitement inside of the render. And you can see the spot here as well. And then the grid light over the top is not only giving us a little more interesting look at the top here, but it's also allowing us to have this really bright rim light. And all of these things are going to increase your product renderings, and the render times on these is actually pretty low as well, because you're not using a lot of geometry on the endless back wall. So I hope that this helps you in any way, and happy blending.